Thank you, everyone. You have the agenda in front of you. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda as circulated? Hearing none, a motion to accept the agenda as circulated is in order. Moved by Councillor Durkee, seconded by Councillor Allen. Motion on the floor to accept the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Item number 3, the approval of the minutes of June 28th, regular and in camera. I trust you all have been able to go through those. Is there any errors or omissions as circulated? Councillor Cunningham?
Right, I'll move the approval of the June 28, 2017 regular council meeting minutes and also the June 28, 2017 in-camera meeting minutes.
All right, moved by Councillor Cunningham to move the regular meeting minutes and in-camera meeting minutes. Does I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Allen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Item number 4, Deputy Warden's remarks. Well, this is a first. It always used to say Warden's remarks, even when I filled in the last time for the Warden. Unfortunately, the Warden is on his way to Truro, so he could not be here this evening. There's just a couple things that I'd like to mention. I trust that all of you have gotten out to the Canada Day celebrations, even though the weather was not the best. I'm happy to say that I was able to get out and about the community. I was actually out to the Cape Horseshoe Lighthouse, and that was very well attended considering the damp and drizzly weather, and a lot of people out there were having a lot of fun. I happened to meet a couple from Connecticut, and they were very impressed. They kind of wished that the building was completed. They had mentioned that, but they said this is a very beautiful site, and they were actually up to traveling the province, and they were in Peggy's Cove, and they were saying how much more beautiful our lighthouse is, even though there was construction going on, than it is out there. And they were very happy, and they were planning to stay a couple extra days. They actually postponed their trip on the ferry, so that's nice to know. And the people, they said, were absolutely beautiful around here. They loved their seafood. They never had fresh seafood like that. Also, I was able to get out for the fireworks, which unfortunately was not being able to be held on July the 1st, but it was held last Saturday or Sunday? Last Sunday. I was able to go out there, and it's good to see a lot of happy faces out and about our town and municipality. I met once again a lot of people, and it was hard to get out of the town at night, and that's good to see. And obviously the municipality, District of Yarmouth, is happy to have any travelers that come into the area, and if you see anybody that seems to be wanting any directions, go out and say hi, introduce yourselves, and offer them any assistance that they need. One thing I found kind of interesting, and the CAO had mentioned this a year or so ago, that some of the American tourists, when they come over here, their GPSs are not formatted to run Canadian roadways. And so what I did is I had a couple extra maps from YASTA that shows the Yarmouth and Acadian Shores area, and they were very thankful. So I try to carry some of those around with me. So if any of you get a chance, please go over to the office and see Neil McKenzie and get a couple of those tear-off maps, because like I said, some of the American tourists, they don't have Canada compatible GPS systems. Also, there's a lot going on this weekend, as you all well know. Seafest is going on. There's also community events all throughout the municipality. The Forest Glen Community Centers are having their Heritage Day, and I hopefully see some of you out there. And one thing I do want to mention on that, even though this is on the agenda later on about community events, the tickets for the supper are sold out. There's only very few left, and there's going to be a first come, first served basis. And from what I'm hearing, there's going to be quite a lot of people that are going to be leaving the car show, and they plan on heading out to the Carleton area because the grand openings are at 3 o'clock. So I just wanted to point that out. And if any of you have anything going on in your community, please bring that on in the upcoming events. So I'll leave that at that. I could go on probably for another hour. As the old saying goes, never give a politician a microphone, because he can talk for hours. We'll move on to presentations. Sandra Finney, in regards to the Maud Lewis. Sandra, could someone go and hit her button, red button, so we can turn on her mic, please? The red button. If it starts flashing, I'll turn it on.
Everybody hear me?
Yeah, you can sit down, Sandra. You don't have to
Okay.
sit right on top of the
Whoa,
microphone.
it's easier for me to stand so I can see. I'm too
Okay,
short.
quite all right. Whatever you wish to do. The floor is
Anyway,
yours.
so Deputy Warden and municipal councilors and staff, thank you for this invitation. I feel like the bearer of bad news when I say I'm not sure if Maud Lewis was born in South Ohio or Yarmouth. In fact, my research indicates that the likelihood of her being born in Yarmouth is pretty solid. I can't find a thing, nothing. And I've done 3 years of research. I'm writing a book on Maud. It'll be very different from this book. This is a wonderful book that Lance Wolliver just published this year, and that's been his life's work, really, about Maud Lewis. And I'll take something from that in a moment. But I started the research 3 years ago when the Friends of the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia were doing the Modified House Project. And I wanted to document that process. So I did so in this little booklet called the Modified House Project that all started here. Anyway, so that, as you remember, were these houses, 11 houses that were placed in different parts of Yarmouth town and county. And artists were invited to paint them, and then we auctioned them off at the art gallery, at the Arc, and raised a lot of money for children's programs and whatnot. So that was a great project. So the project was documented in here. And in the course of doing research for this book, that's when I discovered, and it was new information for me because I didn't know, that Maud had had a daughter, and that the daughter had lived and was raised by a family here in Yarmouth County, the Crosbys in Deerfield. Viral O'Neill was one of the men who was raised also by this family, and his daughter, Vicki O'Neill, who lived a nurse, and she lives in Deerfield. They lived right next door. Her home is right next door to where Maud's daughter was raised by the Crosbys, if that makes any sense. Anyway, so Maud had a daughter, and her daughter's name was Kathleen Maud, which was interesting. Maud Kathleen Maud. And Maud's daughter had 4 children. The first died, boy, he is buried in Deerfield. And the second child in his adulthood came to visit with Vicki and her brother. And Vicki has lots of photos of Maud and her, which is amazing. And one of them is in here. Two of them are in here. Anyway, so this got me more interested in the story and trying to track down family. So long story short, I'll share with you what my research is, because I met with some people from South Ohio, and I think word got out, well, Sandra Finney doesn't think she was born here, we better set her straight, you know. And I got a few phone calls, and people were upset, and I understand that, because when you believe something has happened of significance in your community, you want to hold on to that. I would, if I had believed that Maud was born in Canaan. I would want to find out that she was. So I made as many inquiries as I knew how to make with different people. And the things that came back to me, well, Sandra, my grandmother used to say, but the grandmother's not alive, so I couldn't interview that person to get firsthand primary information. What I also got a lot of was, well, the AGNS says so on their website. And I thought, oh no. Anyway, and yes, the AGNS did say so on their website. So I contacted the historian there. Lori, where did you get your information? I'm just trying to track down evidence. I'd like to investigate it. I'd like to speak with the person. Oh, Lance Wolliver's books. Oh, okay. And I had all of Lance Wolliver's books, every single one. Eventually, I tracked him down. He's out west at this point, about 2 years ago. I said, Mr. Wolliver, trying to track down information. Could you share with me where you got your information? What basis, what evidence you have that Maud was born in South Ohio? And he said, oh, I was wrong. I'm going to correct it in my next book. And that's what he did. He corrected it in this book here. So there's pages in the front part. And because basically I had sent to him my research. So this is what I discovered. I couldn't find anything in South Ohio. I went through all the church records. I went through all the school records. I went through whatever records, hard copies, and online that I could find. So there was nothing, 0000. But in the town of Yarmouth, the Yarmouth assessments, which started in 1899, from 1899, John Dowley, her father, is listed 1899, 1900, 1901, etc., up to 1911, with where he lives and how much he paid. There were assessment taxes. $1, $2, whatever. So that clearly indicates to me that he was in Yarmouth for 11 years. Then the Canada Census started in 1901, and in 1901 he is listed on Lovett Street. 1911, Maud's not in the picture yet, but her brother is. So it lists his wife Agnes, her brother Charles, George had died. And then in 1911 they're still listed on Lovett Street. And again, it's the parents and Charles, and Maud is listed on the 1911 census. 1921 census, she's listed again, on and on. So between those two things, I thought, well, it seems like the family was living in Yarmouth from 1899 onwards, her dad. And then I went through school records, and I have the school records from Milton School when she went to school. She didn't go for long, but I have the dates and the years and all that good stuff. And then in a documentary which I have at home, and you can see it online, it's wonderful. It's a CBC documentary that was done in 1967. At that time, Maud is still alive. And somewhere in that little stretch that shows she and Everett, there's conversations with them, and she says, I was born in Yarmouth in 1903. Now that could have meant South Ohio, because Yarmouth, you know, is a broad area. And and it goes on and on. Her birth certificate lists her as being born, in Yarmouth, March the 3rd. So that's not all. Like, I got 3 years of research to try to cram in 5 minutes here. So, but this gives you an idea, I think, of what I have discovered. And I have nothing for South Ohio. I would see anybody. I'll go through records. I'll go talk with people. You provide me some little glimmer of something, and I'd be really happy to do that, because when I complete the book, I'm not saying she was born in Yarmouth, but I can say this is my research, and make up your own minds. You know, it's people, because you'll have to do that. Anyway, any questions?
Yeah, any questions by anyone? Trevor?
Sure.
No, Gerard's actually come up first.
Did she ever live in South Ohio? Did they ever live in South Ohio?
No,
Not at all.
not to my knowledge, not from what I can
I wonder
find.
where South Ohio came from.
I have no idea. In his book here, he does, Mr. Wolliver does mention a reference to an exchange house, that he lived in the exchange house. Well, there was an exchange house in Yarmouth in 1900, and that was his address, Exchange House, Yarmouth, in either 1899 or 1900, I'd have to go back. But that was the corner, I think, of Lovett and Main. And that was a location, an assessment, like you'd say the courthouse assessment, or, you know, that block, or the Dr. Willoughby block. So that was an area that was assessed. And that's the only thing. And he said, too, that he came in 1996, he and his wife, and they literally knocked on doors in South Ohio and Hebron and talked with people to see if they could get more information. And one thing I've always wondered, like, you know, in 1900 there were dirt roads. You know, we lived in Milton, and there was a dirt road from Chestnut Street. It was forest,
Yes.
you know, coming out. So to think that if he had his workshop, which that is documented too, his harnessing shop, and where he made leather goods,
Right.
on Lovett Street, I don't think he would travel to South Ohio, or live in South Ohio, and travel to Yarmouth to
Yes.
work.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine how long that took in those days.
Yeah.
That, you know, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But that's just my own.
So apparently you have talked to Gail also.
Gail
Gail Can.
Can. Oh my gosh, I spoke with a Gail.
Oh, you don't know?
No.
I thought
There's a woman who did a lot of research about Maud, and her files are at the museum, and I have all that. And I think that,
Gail Can. She lives in South Ohio.
yeah, I didn't think her last name was Can, but I do have,
Well,
I have her
yeah.
whole file.
Okay.
Yeah. But I
Okay.
haven't,
My
I don't know if I talked with her on the phone or
my
not.
wife is very disappointed.
Yes, yes.
She
Well,
al-
I'll tell you, if she were born in South Ohio, I mean, this is the time to really
Yeah, yeah,
do something to celebrate it, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
All right. Councillor Cunningham?
Senator, I should know the answer to this question, but are there any significant pieces of Maud's works that are in public hands in Yarmouth County? I mean, where are her works? I know a lot of private collectors have her works, and I'm assuming the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia has some of her works.
Yeah.
But are there any? Is there any sort of work afoot to bring to repatriate, if you want to use that word, some of her works to Yarmouth County?
I don't know is the answer to your question, and I don't think so, only because I know of people that have Maud Lewis paintings in their homes, and I don't think they'd want to be letting go. They have donated them to the art gallery. 2 years ago, when we had the Modified House project, many people loaned. They loaned their work, and it was fantastic. So there were little stories about how they came upon the work, like John and Jean Cluley had 2 pieces there, and different people, lots of people have Maud Pieces works, and they loan them to the gallery, which was just great. Yeah.
It just strikes me as something that we may want to investigate as a municipality and
Sure.
in town, in terms of acquiring some of those for permanent public display. It seems reasonable that people would want to come to Yarmouth to be able to enjoy those works. I mean,
Yes.
you know, when you go to any center, many people go to the art gallery, and of course we have an art gallery, but I mean, it would be nice to have some of her works on permanent display for
Yes.
folks to see.
Yeah, for sure,
Do
for
it.
sure.
Oh, do it.
Yeah.
Councillor Durkee?
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. I love hearing more about this. And just to answer Trevor's question, Alan Deacon from Wolfville has the
Yes.
largest Maud Lewis collection in the country, and he actually has been extremely helpful to people in verifying that paintings are real,
Authentic.
because there have been
Yeah.
a lot of fakes done over the years.
Yeah.
And but we do have a significant collection here in our library, in our art gallery, and then of course her whole house is set up in Halifax. Sandra, I have a question for you. Lance's book is her biography, and how is what you're doing going to be different from her? Because I'll want to read both of them, of course.
Oh, well, okay, is anybody here familiar with his work?
Just the
okay.
the old one, but I haven't
Okay.
seen this one.
Well, this is like, I think he told me he had 17 boxes of files of information, and I think he's got every word in here. You can see it's a huge manuscript.
Huge.
And yeah, so this is a lot of his own personal interests and his take on it. Okay, mine is different this way. I'm gathering stories of people that knew her firsthand, stories that he doesn't have. So in this book, he has talked with people and he does quote some people, but mine is a different one. And I'll give you just one little example. When Everett was drinking, when he'd go on a bat, Maud would come to Yarmouth. And I've spoken with people who have primary information about this, who were there. And so she would, either salesmen would pick her up on their way, like Jim Corning's dad was traveling all the time on the roads, and so different people would pick her up, or she'd bum a ride, or a taxi would take her for nothing, you know, because they were going back and forth to the ferry all the time from Yarmouth. Anyway, and the friends in South End, friends of the family, would have pound parties for her. So they would collect, people would come and they'd have a social, and there'd be a pound of butter, a pound of cheese, a pound of bacon, a pound of this, and a pound of that. So knowing that times were not easy and difficult, so it's these kinds of stories. It's a human interest story. I'll be talking with a nurse who nursed her as she was dying. So I have their personal stories. The second thing is, it's going to include a section about folk art, and how is folk art different from fine art, abstract art, contemporary art. Bernie Riordan, who I think was instrumental in bringing her house to the art gallery to have it restored, and that was a 15-year project. Anyway, and then her exhibit went all across Canada. The Maud Lewis, there was a train that went across with her house and back and forth. So Bernie Riordan has agreed to be part of the book. Alan Deacon is going to write an introduction. I just love this man. He's so knowledgeable. And the other thing is, there's a whole sociological group of people, which I never knew about. This is what I learned in my research. A group of people called the folk. And it would be like the Acadians, the Blacks, the Loyalists. So there's a group that sociologists have classified as the folk. And it's fascinating just to learn about their characteristics. And the folk tend to be earthy, not well educated, farmers, fishermen, live in rural areas, especially in Nova Scotia. Amazing sense of humor. They see in 3D. Like, it's a whole classification of people. And I find this fascinating. And then Erin Morton, a girl from Yarmouth, from the county here, has her PhD in art and has written an amazing book about the folk. And part of that has to do with Maud Lewis. So again, different from what I'm doing. She's approaching it from an art perspective. And anyway, so I'm interviewing her. So it's just different. It's just different. Different book.
Sounds wonderful. Is Maud's daughter still alive?
No, Catherine is dead. 2 of her grandchildren, the boys, are dead. One came to visit Vicky, and I have photographs of him because he wanted to get more information about his grandmother, Maud. But there are still 2 girls who are alive. My understanding, they live in Toronto, and I hope to go in Toronto in November and meet with them, but I still have to track them down and get their permission. And so these would be granddaughters, but the 2 brothers and the mother, Catherine, has
And did
died.
Maud's daughter marry?
Maud's
Well,
daughter.
obviously
Yes,
not
yes.
obviously she had kids, but yes.
Yeah, I'll just pass this around quickly. This is her husband, Paul. I have to look here. Paul Muse.
And they lived in Yarmouth?
No, they lived up near here.
Yeah,
That's her daughter
okay.
and her husband. And this is Catherine as a little girl. Maud's daughter. And see, the
That's
movie, how many
fabulous.
saw the movie?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's Maud's
Okay.
daughter, Catherine, and her husband, Paul. It was a wedding day over in Deerfield. And that's Catherine as a little girl down and the movie was wonderful. Of course,
It's opened a whole
yeah.
new
And they took a
door.
lot of liberties with the truth in that too, you know, so, because Maud's daughter was not sold.
No.
Because the movie implied that she was sold, somebody bought her.
Thank you.
Anyway. Okay.
Councillor LeBlanc again?
Sandra, I'm just wondering, does any of Maud's family get any royalties from this?
Not a penny.
Not a penny.
And that's a tragedy.
Yes,
That's
it is.
tragic. It's just tragic. Not a penny.
Staff, do you have any questions? Go ahead, Ken.
Just a couple of things, Senator, very interesting. I'm from South Ohio,
Uh-huh.
and I can remember when I was younger, somebody pointing out an actual house that Maud Lewis lived there at one time. Now, I don't know if that's factual. I don't know if, and again, where she was born, where she lived the majority of the time, I don't know. Just that they made the comment that, yes, she lived there for a period. I don't
Okay.
know.
Can you track down who told you that, or has it been
No.
just too long?
It
Can
was
you still know the house? I'd come out and take a picture.
one of 2 houses,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not sure which one, but if you come to Ohio Corner
Yes.
and you turn towards where the church was,
Yes,
it's either the first or second house on the right.
where the meat store used to be?
It
Just
would be
past it?
across from the meat store. It would be on the
On
right.
the other side?
On the right.
Okay, okay.
Either the first or the second house, and I'm one of those 2 houses, and I'm not even sure. It was a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
And it was an older person that would have
Uh-huh.
said that.
Uh-huh.
And I know terrible, I'm forgetting names. Gordy, I'll think about it. I'll remember his name.
Give me a call.
I will. I will.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah, 648-0462. Yeah, and I'll go see Gail Davis. I'm pretty sure I spoke with her on the phone, and if not, I may not have spoken with her. I have her whole file. But I'll call her and just see if she has any additional information. Happy to do
Her
that.
married name was Gail O'Sullivan.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Yeah, okay. Well, she has a big file because she did a presentation at the community hall
Okay.
a few years ago, and all that information is at the Yarmouth County Museum, so I have that. Yeah. Yeah. And if there's any of this research that you'd like to have, I'm happy to photocopy it or share it with you, or, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the fellow that used to live in that house when I was younger was Gordy Trask. Now, he'd be a bit older than me. I don't even know if he's still alive, but
Doesn't live far from you. Well,
Is-
no, where he lived in South Chicago.
yes, I know.
So is he alive now?
Yes, yes, Gordy.
Gordy Trask?
Gordy Price is married to Helen. Oh, Mary Roberts' sister.
So are they in Rennerton or Canaan or?
In Rennerton.
In
Rennerton?
Rennerton, that's right.
Okay.
He did move to
Yes.
Rennerton.
All right, I'll
But he
track him
lived
down.
in the second house beyond the corner. Now, I'm
Yep.
not sure. Somebody had said, well, yes, Maud Lewis lived in that house at one time, and it was either that house or the one right before it.
Mhm.
But that's all. I just remember somebody saying that.
Yeah,
And again, they said she lived there, and maybe she just stayed with the family there for a period of time. I don't
I'll
know.
tell you what's not known, and I haven't been able to find. When Maud's daughter was born, Maud was told she had a son and it had died. That's what she was told.
Yes, right.
Anyway, and that she has recorded herself. Anyway, so the Crosbys in Deerfield, Maud's father brought Maud's baby, Catherine, to the Crosbys, but at that time she was 3 months old. She had to stay with a family somewhere for 3 months, and we didn't have hospitals then. Like, yeah.
And do you know, because it wasn't a real acceptable thing probably for her to have
Yeah.
a child at that point. But,
Sure.
and maybe she stayed with the family there for,
Could be
I don't
that
know.
Maud lived with a family in South Ohio for 3 months. Oh, I would love to track that down. That would be Maud's daughter, excuse me, not Maud.
Yes,
That Maud's daughter,
yes.
yes, yeah. Anyway, all kinds of mysteries, still
But, yeah,
things not
that's
known.
right. But again, Gordy Trask lived in the house. Now, whether he had heard that same thing or not, I don't know.
Uh-huh, yep. well,
But it seems to me, I remember I was fairly young, but, and Maud they were just realizing that her paintings were becoming popular.
Yes.
And, way back in the beginning, and somebody said, well, yes, she lived in that house for a period, and I don't know, could have been a
Well,
month, could
I'll
have been
track
a
it
week,
down.
could have been, I don't
Yeah,
know.
thank you, and thank you for having
All
me
right.
in tonight.
Very
Okay,
interesting.
good enough.
Thank you very much
It's
for
a
coming
great
in,
story,
Sandra.
I mean,
One thing I did want to bring up before you left, if you talked to a former councilor of the municipality, Kenny Crosby,
Ken Crosby lived there too, he may know something, I don't know.
he may know something. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've talked to him or not.
I haven't. Happy to.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
he lived
yeah.
right in that area, grew up
Yes.
right in that area.
That's what brought Sandra here.
Yeah,
Well, there was a Facebook exchange, and Ken said we should go to the council and do something, because Maud was born in South Ohio, and I said, oh, Ken, well, ooh,
yeah.
before you, hold on a minute.
well, see, and
But I'll give him a call, I will.
Yeah, you really should
Yes, I
give him a
will.
call. He's,
Yeah.
well, I shouldn't say he's
Maybe,
old, but
maybe ask what
You
sparked
better
him to
not,
say
because
that.
I'm older.
well, thank you very much.
Anyway,
Thank you very much, Sandra, for coming in. You certainly
Thank you very much.
much appreciated.
Good night.
All right, we'll move on to the next thing on the agenda, item number 6, business writing, the request from the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation Whirlpool Tub for Veterans. What's the wishes of council? Councillor Allen?
Personally, I'd like to see us table that till a later date, maybe next council meeting, see what, exactly what's taking place with our partners and stuff as far as this is concerned.
Okay. Is that all in agreement?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll table that until the next regular. Do you want to table that to the next committee of the whole or regular council?
Let's probably say regular.
Okay. Item number 7, new business. Item number 1, June development report. That's all in your package. As Anita, Councillor Durkee?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the June development report as presented.
All right, moved by Councillor Durkee. Do I have a seconder? I heard somebody, Councillor LeBlanc, second that. Motion on the floor to accept the June development report. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Item number 2, community events. Councillor Durkee?
Yes, I would just like to bring up that this weekend is the Seafest Roaring Twenties annual car show. They are expecting, not sure how I should put that one, about 700 cars this year. It has basically tripled in size over the last 3 years. The committee has worked exceptionally hard to build this event up to make it our Wharf Rally. On Friday at 10 a.m. there is a brunch run from the Mariner Center to the old Argyler. Then in the evening at 6:30 is the car parade through Yarmouth. On Saturday, registration is at 10, but cars start parking at 8 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of the downtown streets have been, will be blocked off for the classic cars. And what I also want to mention is that it is not just for antique and classic cars, it's also for specialty vehicles, and motorcycles are welcome as well. We also have, after the event, for those participating in the event, there is a barbecue for the participants of the show in Port Maitland at the Hook and Sea, and the idea is to try and get cars to go both to include the municipality of Argyle and the municipality of Yarmouth as well. But let's just hope for good weather, folks. That's what we need.
Is there any others? Go ahead again.
I have another one. The Port Maitland Heritage Day is usually at the same time of the car show, but they have changed that to August the 12th. And on that day, they usually have a tour of the area. They have an auction supporting the old stone cemetery. And for your information, I'm not sure if anybody's aware of this, but there are actually 3 cemeteries in Port Maitland that have the largest Mayflower descendants. And in 2020, it's the 400th anniversary of Mayflowers, and there's a huge Mayflower following in the United States. So we're expecting a lot of people to visit. What the Old Stone Society has done is they've got QR codes for every individual that's buried in those cemeteries. So you can actually go with your cell phone, check the QR code. It will show you who it was, who their relatives were, and where they actually lived in the Port Maitland area. So it's pretty up there in terms of what they have to offer. So they're working on getting some signage and to make it make people more aware of what actually the cemetery is all about.
Thank you very much, Councillor Durkee. And one thing I want to mention is I've tried that QR code thing. I think that's a diamond in the rough out there that should be promoted a little bit more vigorously through different tourism organizations like YASTA for one. I tried on my phone, and it's amazing how well that app works. And I remember when I can't remember his name, come in and first pitch that to council, and we gave him a little bit of, I think it was $1,000 at the time in regards to grants. Allen was his name. Wilfred Allen. He come and made a presentation to council on that, and it works really well, I must say.
To let you know, Bill Curry is, I believe, the chair of the board of the Old Stone Society, and he's willing to take people on tour. So I think, you know, we're really working on trying to make it a destination for anybody.
Absolutely. I see no more microphones, so I'm just going to bring up one more time. I mentioned this in the deputy warden's remarks. Also, this Saturday coming is the Heritage Day at the Forest Glen Community Center Hall. The official event is going to be opened at 3 o'clock. So if you're all done looking at cars, you can, and if the weather might be a little bit warmer out there, please come down. The Scott's Timber Show is going to be starting their show at 3:15. One thing I should mention is bring your own lawn chair, obviously, because it's going to be done in the lake. I still have been told that I'm going to be voluntold to give it a try. We'll see about that, as long as my knee is not swollen. So, but I still will give it a whirl. if I certainly want to try. If you all remember, the warden said that I will lose. I don't lose very well, so I'll certainly be trying my darndest. And also, coming up, I had also mentioned this before in a previous council meeting, September the 9th is the preliminary date for the Carleton Fire Hall Days, Fireman's Day. It's still under the planning stages, and actually, Councillor LeBlanc, I had mentioned your name to come out and play some music, and if I get up to it, maybe I'll try to join you, and hopefully I don't ruin your music. Because I don't play that often, but I certainly enjoy to play. Yeah. All right. Moving on to item number 7.3, Abandoned Boats Program. You all see that in your package. One thing that I noticed in here is this here will also, there's $6.85 million funding initiative. And this is a grant and contribution funds will be provided to assist communities to permanently remove and dispose of existing high priority abandoned or wrecked small boats causing hazard in Canadian waters. We recently heard in the news that the Fairleigh Mowat is, I believe, falling under this program, which is down in Shelburne Harbor. I'm not too sure. Is there an inventory of any boats that may be derelict in the shores of the municipality? I don't ever remember anyone complaining to me personally about it, but Ken?
Not that I'm aware of, but we were talking about it a bit amongst staff and thinking maybe harbor authorities may be more in tune with whether there's something in their area that may be there that's a nuisance. I don't know. So we could make that inquiry, I guess, of harbor authorities. And Daniel, being a fisherman, Councillor Allen, may have more knowledge on things like that.
Councillor Allen?
Yeah, I agree with Ken. I think this might be something that could be put out to the harbor authorities. They would have more knowledge of what's around. Like we do have a boat down on the Tuscan Islands right now that's been there for 2 years. Been run aground, a dragger that's there. I don't know if it would fall under this, but it may. Something of that nature. And the harbor authorities would definitely be the guys to inform us.
Absolutely. I certainly hope that I don't see any derelict boats out in the Carleton area, because if they do, they've got up there somehow that I don't know about. But I totally agree that that's something that the local harbor authorities would certainly have a lot more knowledge, and appreciate staff passing this on to them. All right, since there's no more discussion on that, we'll move on to item 7.4, telecommunications tower proposal in Caesar Lake. You all have that in your package. Is there any discussion on that? Councillor Cunningham.
Yeah, I'll move that council's in concurrence with the conditions of the proposal by resolution, or that will resolve. I'll move, sorry, that council's in concurrence with the proposal put forward by Mr. Curry and recommended by our development officer
Okay,
for an internet tower, telecommunications tower in the Cedar Lake area.
motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? I seen Gerard first, so moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Item number 7.5, Lakes and District Fire Hall. Councillor Durkee, you have the floor.
Thank you. I am pleased to announce that the Lakes and District Fire Hall held a meeting with its constituents last week with a significant turnout, and they did a great job presenting their proposal for a new addition to their fire hall and making their present fire hall into a community center. It was met with resounding support, and therefore we can go ahead and present them with the grant that we had approved.
All right. Is that it? Thank you very much on that. I also want to mention that I was also out there along with Councillor Cushing, and I had actually posed the question, which actually closed the meeting, how many are in favor? And if I remember correctly, I counted 49 or 50 residents. There was quite a few, and there was a lot of good input on that, and it was a resounding, overwhelming yes. So I congratulated Scott and Corinne, and they'll be moving forward with the project with the community's blessing. So thank you, Patty, and thank you for inviting me out there and keeping me posted that that meeting was going on at the time. I was certainly glad to go out. All right, item number 7.6, cellular and internet services, and that issue was brought forward by me. As we all know, that there's a couple community internet services that are going up, one in Cedar Lake and one out in the Forest Glen area. And what I'm looking for is a consensus from council to continue to be updated on this project, and also in regards to the application that the Western Regional Enterprise Network put in regards to the federal government funding, $500 million funding. So I don't want this issue to drop, because I've been hearing almost by 2 or 3 people a week about different issues with cellular or internet, or even just recently there's a couple that bought a home out in the North Kemp area that cannot even get a landline, and they have no cellular and or internet service, or what internet they can get is a 0.03 speed if they can get it, and that includes 3 boosters on their ceilings. This is an item that I think that we as a council should be keeping on top of, and if there's anything that may arise from any issues in regards to these community internet projects or other, if there's anything we as a municipal council could do, I think we should be on top of that. So what I'm requesting for consensus is that we have this going on our next committee of the whole meeting, which is going to be held, I believe, in September, the second week in September. So that's the reason why I'd like to see this move forward and keeping on top of it, because I'm sure each and every one of you have heard this issue and you've traveled up my way and know the dire straits that a lot of people are in. I've seen Councillor Cunningham's mic on first, I believe. Trevor, you're on.
Right, I agree with that. I think, I'm assuming that we can have consensus on that being an item, because it is a very, very important item. I'm glad to see we're moving ahead slowly, but it is a huge issue. I mean, I'd like to see us, through staff, maybe be able to work with, because there is a lot of fiber out there. It's just not necessarily being accessed. I don't know how we can collaborate with the internet service providers and so forth to sort of move that forward. I mean, it may be that it may be that we can work with them. Perhaps we should have them into a meeting and you know, have that conversation. I'll put that out there for conversation.
Ken, you had a comment on that?
Just further to that, Councillor Cunningham, the application is in under the REN for a piece of that funding to put in the backbone in the community. And we are party to that. We're a partner in that application. Now, as part of that application, there are a number of other applicants, including some of the big players. Now, their vision of what they may or may not do in our particular area may be quite different from what we propose. We believe that we have a better proposal and a more inclusive proposal, where theirs is more proprietary and they would only maybe cherry pick a couple of areas. So we're hoping that our application is the successful one. And if that is the case, there won't be 3 successful or however many applicants are. They won't all be approved. One will be approved and the others will be forced to work with them. So what you're saying, in effect, will be part of the process that will be undertaken when they make decisions on those applications. And the Bells have applied just like we have. So we are in with the big boys, but we do think we have a much more inclusive application. And we're hoping that ours is the chosen one, and then they'll either have to play ball with us or sit outside and let us do our thing.
Councillor Durkee?
Yes, I totally support your suggestion, Deputy Warden. The internet, which includes cell service, is something that we put in as top priority in our strategic plan. So I think that we should have regular updates on that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I don't know who was on next. I don't know if it's Councillor LeBlanc or Allen, but we'll see. Councillor Allen, you're up.
Yes, I'm definitely in support. I have a lot of residents that are in the same situation as you have, with little to no internet service and a lot of dead zones for cell phone. So I'm actually hearing some rumblings of a group maybe trying to put an application in similar to what's going on in Forest Glen. But again, comes back to knowing where the actual fiber op runs and the backbones, and you know, whether we can access that or not, or they can access that. So I would really like to see an update, especially, you know, Mr. Curry seems to be going well, and I'd like to see how they're making out with the Forest Glen, and you know, no, definitely.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Daniel just said that he'd like to hear an update of how things are going in Forest Glen. Have you got an update on what's going on there? Or?
No, I do not. The only thing that I can say is our development officer, Mark Blinn, is currently working on getting all the T's crossed and the I's dotted in that regard. So I believe the CIO could fill you in a little bit more on that.
If you haven't got a date or like,
No.
or
No,
fall, or
yes, the intention is to have that in place this calendar year. And he's working on a lot of things concurrently, like the site arrangements, the lease of the property, the agreement with the provider. He's working also with people to install, people to prepare the site for installation, looking at all the different components, and he's working on nailing all those components down and hopes to bring all that together within the near future, so that then he can start the ball rolling on actually constructing the tower. Initially, I think, are preparing the roadway into where the tower is going and the site, and then getting the tower up initially, and then working out from there. So he's working on that.
could be a Christmas gift for a lot of people.
We hope it's before Christmas.
Yes. Councillor Durkee.
I'm not sure where to go with this, but we have a lot of dead spots for cell service throughout the municipality. And I'm just wondering, can someone come in maybe and explain why that's happening. I know through, as Trevor had mentioned, by the bakery in Hebron, I know going through Wellington. I also noticed that out in the Lake Jesse area, like cell service is just, we're not getting it. And I don't understand really at this day and age why that's happening. Not sure where to go with it.
Well, that's maybe something that we can discuss, so once we have an update, that maybe, whether Mark comes in or Ken has an update, or whoever, whatever staff does, or maybe even Derek, I'm not sure. But, maybe they hear something, and maybe they could make a recommendation that we contact Bell Canada, I don't know, or TELUS, or Rogers, or whoever the ISP or cell phone service provider may be. Maybe we could get them all in the room at once, who knows? This is just to make sure, I just wanted to make sure that we kept moving forward with this, and like Councillor Allen had mentioned, that he has a group down his way that it's looking for this. People are starting to take this in their own hands, and we really need some answers, and I believe Ken wanted to speak to this as well.
Yeah, and again, that is part of why we believe our application under the REN is a better application, because it's more inclusive, because we would actually collectively be the owners of the towers. We could allow for whatever electronic components are necessary for cell service, we could allow those on those towers without a whole lot of red tape.
Yeah.
That would be great, that if
Yeah.
we could include cell service in that, because it
Yeah.
is poor in many different areas.
Because the intent, I believe, would be that if we get our proposal, that we would have a fair amount of infrastructure that we would be in control of, that obviously cell service is big, it's big just like internet is for us.
Thanks.
And,
That would be
but
great.
the other part is, and I know Councillor Allen mentioned that he's got some of his folks chomping at the bit. Right now, the master plan is in through the REN for the big chunk of funding to get the backbone in. So the only reason the other two projects were, the province funded them, was because they were already in the works. But, so we'd be we could be shooting ourselves in the foot if we jump into another one till we know what the answer to that is. But if the answer is no, we may start picking them off one at a time ourselves. I don't know.
Councillor Allen?
No, and I understand what you're saying, Ken. I just, unfortunately, in today's day and age, it's hard to tell people to wait. You know, when we're looking at, we don't know when we're going to hear back whether our application even gets accepted, and then looking at beyond that, we could be 2 years, 1 year, 2 years down the road, when there's groups that have applied, and as Councillor LeBlanc said, maybe getting an early Christmas present. You know, it's a small community, and people know each other, and you know, people want, they all want to be connected. Everybody wants to be connected, and everybody should be connected. There's no reason, but no, they're just talking right now. I've explained to them what we have going on, and they're trying to be patient, and hopefully things can hold out.
I mean, we've been told by the REN, and the REN has received information that they will be reviewing those applications and should get an answer before the end of the summer. However, I know how the federal government works sometimes, and
Yes.
that can drag. And I certainly hope it doesn't, because it's not uncommon for the federal government to approve projects late fall or even into the winter, and then want you to get it done in the winter, and then want winter construction, which is the most expensive.
Right.
However, we wouldn't actually be ready that quick if they only told us in November that we've got something. And I'm assuming they would give us quite a lengthy period of time, because it's quite an extensive project.
Yes, and the group that have been talking to me, I don't suspect they're going to be doing anything between now and the fall anyway. So I'm hoping that maybe by the fall.
Yeah, once we know if we get approval and what that approval is, I think we'd have a better idea of how the coverage area and how many towers and where
Right.
they could be strategically located. if we get all of it, or if we don't get all of it, then okay, what's the best we do?
Yeah, and then that's what I've been relaying to them, that, you know, maybe just be a little bit patient, but
I know
it
it's,
wears,
well, and
it
they've been
wears.
without till now. And
if they've been
yeah,
without, yes.
no
yes.
question.
I asked, like I said, I'm glad council's in full support of moving this forward to the next committee of the whole. I brought this on to the agenda very late. I asked Liz to have it on, and the reason why I asked to have it on is I was out in the Carlton area first thing in the morning, and one of the American tourists was out in the Carlton area, and they obviously didn't have a GPS, but what they were using was Google Maps on their cell phone. They were looking to go down towards the East Kemp, towards the tin mine site, and going through Ohio. The only place they could get internet service was within the Carlton School area. So they had a way around no maps in their GPS for their vehicle because they were using Google Maps on their phone. But of course, they lost cell service, so they were stuck in the mud. Another person I gave a map to, unfortunately, it didn't continue on into the next municipal district in Argyle and down through Shelburne. So that just goes to show how important it is and how we depend on that service every day. That's enough, and if there's no more discussion on that item, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Council. Item number 8, committee reports. You all have them in front of you. Is there any questions for any committee members or chairman of the different committees? Seeing none, I do have one quick committee report, and it's in regards to the District Planning Commission. That's not a committee that regularly meets. That consists of myself, Councillor Cushing, the warden, and 3 councillors from the municipality Argyle, the district planner Brad, and I believe Kenny, you were there, were you not? We had a meeting on June 28th. Just to let you know, Councillor Cushing, Lauren Cushing, from the municipality of Yarmouth, was elected chair on that committee. So I believe we plan on having another meeting in the fall. So if there's going to be any questions, all those questions can be directed to him. Now, I believe that's the first committee that he's chaired for the municipality, so I'd like to congratulate him, or say that I'm sorry. But anyway, it's good that he's getting his feet wet in different aspects of the municipality. And also one more thing is the Planning Advisory Committee meeting that is scheduled for next week has been postponed until a later date, just so councils are aware. There was no agenda items, and due to the busy summer schedule of staff and councilors and stuff, I guess everything is going well in that committee. I guess my question to staff is, do we need a motion to accept the committee reports? Or okay, so could someone please put forward? Moved by Councillor Cunningham. Do I seconder to accept the committee reports? Seconded by Councillor Allen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Well, that comes to the end of our agenda. Thank you everyone for coming in, and please get out into the municipality and join all the events that's going on all summer long. So, motion to adjourn, moved by Trevor. Thank you very much.